Hello and welcome to this episode of the GrowVC Everyone Funding Startups podcast. I'm your host Marcus, and today we're joined by Michelle Darné, founder of The House 001. Michelle, it's a pleasure to have you on a podcast, so thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So would you give a little background to yourself, who you are and where you've come from?
Well, I've been in the media business for, I guess I'm going on my 27th year. I actually started loading trucks when I was 16 years old. So, of course, if the listeners do the math, they'll know that I'm 45. But so I've been around for a while. Started in the business, as I mentioned, in the San Francisco Bay Area when I was 16, loading trucks. And I was fortunate that just like in life, right, we have angels that come and they pick us up even when we don't know that they're there. And I was fortunate that in my career, there were a few of those angels that, saw my work ethic, even though I was a kid, and really sort of helped me to move my career along. I don't come to the party with a communications background like many that are in my business, especially now in this day and age. One typically has to have a communications background to do the things that I've done. However, I was fortunate that a few of these people, one woman in particular, saw my abilities and brought me into the sales department. So I was sort of poached out of the warehouse and into the sales department, and that really kicked off my career on the advertising side. I then went from newspaper to, she retired and, of course, pushed me to go towards the magazine industry, said I was way too hip for the newspaper conservative environment. So I moved into the magazine environment and excelled. I became an account executive and started selling advertising space and started doing projects and so on and so forth. My goal and lifelong dream was to live and work in New York. And I was able to land in my late 20s a big job at a fashion magazine. And my beat became Paris, Italy, New York. I was fortunate to take care of about 600 clients from Donna Karan to Dolce & Gabbana, beauty, fragrance. I mean, I was really, really got indoctored into the New York culture and started working globally. I did that for about 5 years, and I got burnt out. It's a rough business to be in. However, I was able to get global contacts. I was able to really learn the business of fashion and publishing. I went on what we call in the business hiatus and took a couple of weeks off. I was contemplating taking a job at some other big fashion magazines, a couple of men's magazines. And in that process, I had a client, a friend of mine, who at the time was in-house counsel for Maverick Records, which was Madonna's label at the time. And he was working in Southern California. And he asked me if I would meet with some friends of his to discuss the fact that they wanted to start a magazine. And so I met up with them. It ended up me taking them on as a private client. However, at the time, I didn't realize they were a private client. I was just going to sort of help them while I was deciding my next move. That client turned into another client. And before I knew it, I was running with 5 clients, living half time in New York, half time in California. My private client consulting business had kicked off. And again, I think many times things happen sort of by accident, right? I had no intention of starting a business. Through that process, I ended up starting my own media company, a very successful media company out in New York. I published the first ever alternative parenting magazine in the country. I was met with, rave reviews. I took the content, turned it into a radio show with 7 million listeners, then took the same content and, in the business we call it regurgitating or repackaging. I repackaged the same content and turned it into a broadcast television series, which I was the host and executive producer of. So I've been, like I said, I've been around the block for a while. I've been in the business for a long time. I understand packaging. I am now presently working with many entrepreneurs who have fantastic ideas. However, they don't know how to package their goods and services and market them. So that's where we come in, or the house comes into play, is being able to offer those services.
You've definitely been around the block a few times, and you have vast experience from that field. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about the house and what you do, and more information on what you're currently working on.
Well, when I had the media company in New York, and at the time I think I had 30 employees or so, and we were a big business, right? I had investors It was a lot of stress. And I have to say that though I was probably making a good amount of money, probably the best amount of money in my life at the time, I was under tons of pressure and stress, and I never got the opportunity to enjoy all the accolades. At the time I was being hailed as one of the top 100 people in my field, and I was walking the red carpet, and I was being written up, tons of publicity. I mean, knock on wood and thank God, I'm grateful for all the great publicity around the project that I was doing. However, I wasn't living a balanced life. So I was really actually very miserable inside. So, again, on the outside, people can look like, everything is going well and their careers are booming. So part of the house came to be because I realized that with my vast experience that there are numerous entrepreneurs that have these big dreams to create X, Y, or Z. They don't necessarily have a map of how they're going to get from point A to point B. They don't, and many times they're out there doing it by themselves, right? So they find themselves creating these great products, wanting to bring them to market, not really knowing how to do it. And many of them haven't necessarily had the bumps and bruises that I've had. So I've been able to sort of bring my experience to the table to help them. When I sold my media company in New York, though it was probably the saddest day of my life, it was also the happiest day of my life because I needed to alleviate the stress. Like I built this great big huge monster. Once you build it, then you have to drive it, and then you have to feed it every day. And I found that there's a way to be able to live out our dreams and still live a balanced life, still spend time with our children, still spend time with our partners or our husbands or our wives, and be happy. So the house came about because of that. There are clients that are looking, as I mentioned, to deliver their goods and services. What they don't understand really is the branding and marketing aspect of their business. Many of them don't have the hundreds of thousands of dollars to go hire an ad agency to do it for them. So I found that the house was really feeling this new sort of niche. Many people, because of technology, have the ability to do their own websites and do their own podcasts and sort of be out in the forefront. However, they don't know how to package themselves to do it in the right light. So the house is really working with those kinds of entrepreneurs, those kinds of business owners that have something terrific and need to take it to the next level. However, they have no idea of how to package and market those wares. And that's where we come in. So I find that our services are being very valued, at this day, in this day and age because of that. Many of these guys, as I mentioned earlier, are out there on their own. So having me, I'm sort of their lead advisor with many of my clients. I'm their lead advisor on their business. We talk about where they want to be in 5 years, where they want to be in 3 years, how we're going to build backwards, meaning you tell me where you want to be and then I'm going to help you to get there. And I take into consideration what they want for their lives. If that means they want to work 3 days a week, or they want to work 2 days a week, or they want to make $250,000 a year or $5 million a year. It all comes with a price, right? And so what I found based on experience is that, the balance of having a solid personal life and being happy in that will lead to being happy in your business. So I really help them to try to achieve that balance. And it's being, really well received, especially now. I think that the timing for the house could not be better.
In terms of marketing and packaging what you're actually selling and your message, I know lots of entrepreneurs, and I think that many people share that pain. That's something that your audience is inevitably very large in terms of the entrepreneurs.
Yeah, I find myself turning away more business than I actually take. And again, I'm grateful, right? So I always want to preface it with that. It's really important that just as important for me to be happy with my entrepreneurs that I'm working with and the entrepreneurs to be happy with me and for us to have a really good fit. What that means is that if you want to take your business and you want to go to the next level and you really want to go with a global approach and you want to build something substantial with some balance, then I'm your girl. If you want to stay local and you kind of just want to work in that arena, which is great, no judgment. Everybody has to do what they need to do and what makes them happy. I'm probably not your girl. So I find myself, talking to a lot of entrepreneurs about, how do I fit? Do I fit? How do you fit for me? In this day and age, I think that we've all learned that, we can all do business and everybody win, right? I mean, it's a collaboration. It's working together as a team. And, so I find myself with, lots of entrepreneurs and existing businesses out there that really are seeking out our services.